Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video, I'm going to share with you some information about one of my favorite plants. I know I say this every time, but this one has a very special place in my heart. My dad taught me about this, showed me this. I spent a lot of time in the outdoors, not just with my dad, but as an adult and on my own. Because I'm a hiker, I love Mother Nature. I love this plant. It has a special place in my heart. Now, this plant is the creosote bush, or chaparral as it's commonly known. And I feel like this plant is one of those that you must know about because it is so, so special. Now, the creosote bush is a desert plant, and it is not even perennial, it's evergreen. So this plant thrives in dry desert environments. And I have seen places that my dad has taken me and I've gone on my own where there are miles and miles and hundreds of miles of desert, and this bush is growing all over it. Now, one of the interesting things about this plant is that it's what's known as clonal. The creosote plant, thriving in the desert, it can go a couple of years with no water and it will still survive. Now, it does like to have some water and rain every now and again, but because it is so efficient at pulling water out of the earth, it takes the water from any other plants that might want to grow in the desert too. So you'll see places where literally there is nothing on the desert in certain places for miles, except for the creosote bush. And even its own seeds cannot drop and propagate because the bush that they dropped off of is so good at it just absorbing any amount of water that it might be coming from anywhere. So what it has developed its abilities to stay growing is what's called clonal. So as the bush is growing, it will grow twigs on the outside and it kind of grows from the outside. And then as the inside and the older parts of the bush start to die, the bush just keeps growing and it grows from the outside. So it basically is just cloning itself. And that's how it stays alive because like I said, its seeds can't propagate because there's just no water. Now, these do grow in places because the inside dies where they're circular. And there's a beautiful creosote plant in the Mojave Desert that I was lucky enough to go with my dad and some of my siblings. It's called the King Clone, and you can't get to it anymore. They've got it fenced off, and I guess rightly so, because people are curious and there's so much access to information on the internet that I think there are people who would maybe do damage to it. But they figure this chaparral plant is 11,700 plus years old. And my dad, he didn't share that information with us when we were growing up, but he said that this plant was hundreds of years old because you can tell by the way that it grows, that it is a creosote bush. And it's absolutely one of the most special sacred places that is a reminder of my childhood and the brilliance of it. It reminds me a little bit of other plants that tend to be clonal, like the quaking aspens. This is 180 acres of aspen. It's an aspen grove that is one single organism. And I have been to this place many times because it's here in Utah where I live. And it's one organism of an aspen tree. Its root system shoots out, and what looks like hundreds of single trees are actually one organism. And they all turn the same color in the fall. They turn this brilliant, beautiful yellow. And it is one of the most stunning places on earth as well, because it just, if you know the history, what's interesting is there's a road that goes right through the middle of this aspen grove. If you ever get a chance to see something like that, there is a special feeling there. Now, the creosote plant has some really amazing medicinal benefits to it. And I'm going to kind of go quickly over what these are. Please know that the information I share as far as the health benefits It's not meant to be medical advice. This is just my own opinion, and I'm using it to entertain and educate you. So please do your own due diligence when it comes to using herbs and herbal remedies. And from my perspective and my opinion about the creosote bush or chaparral is that it's gotten a little bit of a bad rap, because as modern humans, sometimes we overdo things, and sometimes you can do things that are toxic to your liver, toxic to your kidneys. And I think that creosote has gotten a bit of a bad rap for being toxic to your liver. So keep in mind, there are very powerful plants that you need to use respect when you're utilizing them for your health, the health of your family, when you're consuming them. But in the right amounts, sometimes with other herbs to complement them, they can be absolutely game-changing. So one of my favorite things about chaparral is that it is really good for respiratory health. It's good for detoxification. It's good for digestion. It's a powerful, powerful antimicrobial. And I would even put it up on the level of lomatium. I love lomatium. I love a lot of antimicrobial plants. But chaparral is one that sits at the very top of some of the herbs that I love to use personally. I love to use it in skin preparations like skin salves. I love to use it in tincture form. That's probably my two favorite. And you can add it to capsules. You can add it to different things. But you don't need a large amount of chaparral to give you the benefits. Now, some of the things that it's been studied for are some viral loads, especially viruses in the herpes family, HSV1 and HSV2. And I've personally seen things with family members and close friends, very amazing things happen when they've started utilizing and incorporating chaparral into their daily diet and supplement routine. It's also been studied for anti-cancer, cancer prevention, and also for longevity, just overall longevity. Chaparral puts out these beautiful yellow flowers. It smells like rain. In fact, what's really cool is when this plant gets rain, it smells like the most beautiful rain shower. In fact, some people will take a bundle of chaparral, and it doesn't have to have any flowers on it, just the leaves and the branches. You can make a little bundle like you would with sage, hang it in a shower. My dad used to collect this and give it to my mom. And you hang it in the shower, and when you're taking a shower, the moisture gives this plant, it gives off the most amazing aroma. In fact, if you're ever in a place like Arizona, Northern California, especially places like the Mojave Desert, Northern Mexico, even New Mexico, places where there's desert, and there is the creosote bush or chaparral, and you happen to be there when it rains, it will be so euphoric that you will remember this experience for a lifetime. It has some of the most beautiful smells to it. Now, the leaves, which are part of the plant that is medicinal, they have a waxy substance to them. And in fact, it's called Laria tridentata. And the tridentata comes from the leaves. The leaves are three, they have three prongs on them, or not just, they have three little leaves. And if you look closely at it, you have to look very close to see the third where it gets that tri, because it's a very, very tiny little spike, two bigger leaves, and then a tiny spike that looks that's where it got the tridentata. So what I would say is if you live somewhere in the desert, like places in Arizona, places in near the Mojave Desert, or just places that are just generally dry and deserty, you are probably familiar with this plant, or you've seen this plant, maybe not knowing what it was, because it's so drought resistant that it doesn't need a lot of attention as far as water. So it's very hardy, and it's easy to grow and easy just to kind of let do its thing. It makes it look beautiful, but it doesn't take a lot of care. This is something, if you live in places where there's harsh winters, this is not a plant that I would suggest to put in your herb garden, because it might be a little bit hard to get it going and to keep it alive, because it likes the desert. It loves the desert. So if you have any stories that you have to share about the beautiful creosote bush or chaparral, I would love to hear it. You know, this is something that my dad took us out into the desert, not just to identify plants, but to play. We used to go play in the desert. He'd find some of the funnest sand dunes, and we would roll down the sand dunes, you know, just like when you have a winter day with a snowy hill and a sled. We used to get that too. But the desert and the sand dunes and the plants that thrive in the desert have a really special meaning to me. My dad would get this leather pouch that a Native American friend made for him. He had these beautiful moccasins, and he had this great hat, and he would sometimes go and do short sabbaticals, a week, a weekend, a couple of weeks. I remember this was a constant thing. My dad just on his own. And as an adult at this age, I would love to sit down with my dad and ask him deeper questions than I did ask him when he was alive, because, you know, what did you experience out in the desert? What did you see out there? What did you have meditations? Did you have epiphanies? You know, some of these really amazing places bring clarity to us as human beings. And for all of this experience and care that my dad and mom gave us when we were growing up is really at the forefront of me enjoying being a human being. So if you love the creosote bush as much as I do, I would love to hear about it. If you grow it in your yard, where do you live? Where do you live that you're able to grow it on your property or in your yard? But thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful day, and we'll see you in the next one.